Good afternoon again and welcome. We have two links. Is moderated by Harsha, and in these two sessions, we are looking at digital transformation. We are looking at digital transformation from a big business point of view. We have MAS, we have John Keel's IT, Dialogue, and Nations Trust Bank. And the session following this is perfectly aligned because it discusses digital transformation or the digital disruption from a startup point of view, more or less, right? The session is structured quite in terms of two keynote speeches, followed by a panel discussion. Let's aim to keep this very conversational. Please feel free to get involved. You can do this two ways. Pull out the app, post your questions, post them early. And also, there is a mini poll out there. So during the discussion, see if you would like to answer that from your point of view, your company's point of view. And that will examine, that'll ask you about digital transformation and how you're placed around that. So we're going to start with two keynote speeches. And I will ask Ramesh from John Keel's IT to go first.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The next 20 minutes, I am probably going to spend some time not talking too much about John Keel's or the companies that we deal with, but the learnings that probably we have internalized in the transformation journey, which could be useful to anyone who's going to take this journey on. And probably I will leave it to Shamindra to take on the specifics during the panel. So my theme is simplicity, the transformative imperative. Because I feel today digital has been made so complex. A lot of people are afraid to even talk about digital transformation because they think it's too complex for me. So I think at the onset, I just want to set the context for digital. So when you talk of digital, I think all of us have to have a context, right? So if you take Sri Lanka, the Sri Lankan context is we got 21 million people, right? But if you really take a digital twin of Sri Lanka today, we got about 6 million people who are using social media and internet. But does that confine us to the 6 million? No, because digital is boundaryless, right? So if we want to acquire customers beyond Sri Lankan context, technology is the platform. I think the last panel I walked in time when Peter was kind of trying to crucify Harsha for policy decisions. But I think it's up to us to start or stop blaming politicians and taking probably a forward-looking step. And if we want to do that, digital is the platform where we could conquer the world, because it's not limited by the shores of Sri Lanka or physical boundaries. Having said that, we also talk of inclusive growth. So today, if you look at digital and digital payments, we are talking about only 1 million Sri Lankans having access to credit cards. And of that 1 million, only 50% are using online or at least doing online payments, right? So which is a huge handicap from a Sri Lankan context in terms of a huge barrier as to why we can't progress commerce further. So while this is the context from a Sri Lankan perspective, I just want to share a video which gives you the global context in terms of where the world is going. And there could be a lot more options for us to leapfrog using these technologies as well. So it's all about change, right? So if you look at, if we give it, acknowledge the fact that our digital twin of Sri Lanka is only 6 million deep, do we just leave it at that, or we could do something more? So today, I think when Apple invented iPhone, you could have seen the adoption of mobile phone kind of exponentially grew. So today, AI has the same potential in terms of bringing native language, natural speech into reality, in taking the 6 million digital footprint of Sri Lanka to even 20 million. So if that happens, what would be the digital footprint of your organization? So my digital footprint is about 15,000 LinkedIn users, 2,000 Facebook users, maybe 2,000 Twitter. So if you really look at each of your employees in your organization and their digital footprint, and if you kind of take a cumulative effect of that, what would be the digital footprint of your own organization? How many of you assist your digital footprint? What's your reach digitally? So my first degree of connections on LinkedIn is about 15,000. My second degree of connection is 800,000. My third degree of connection is 24 million. Where on earth would you get that exponential reach other than digital? And would we be wise to disregard such a platform? So imagine the 6 million digital footprint grows to 20 million, and each of those digital users ask you this as a business: I want what I want when I want it. Are you today able to fulfill that proposition? So if you don't, you are leaving room for an opportunity as well as a threat for your organization, because someone else can fulfill that. So which would lead to my next contention, that if you really want to map a user, I know there are about 500 people here, but who can really say that we would have significant information about each of you to profile you and say, you are so and so, this is what you like, this is what you don't like, right? If you look at best, most of our organizations have transactional information. And if you pay cash, we wouldn't even have an address for you. If you pay by credit card or maybe other means, we would have some details about you. So loyalty in terms of touch points, in terms of virtual identity, creates a unique perspective through social media like linking to Facebook's LinkedIn, gives you a social context, gives us a bigger context to profile you better and to serve you better. So if, as I said, if I want what I want when I want it, if I'm a vegan, if say someone sends me a promotion on sausages, would I like it? So how do I personalize what I want? Right. So this is an ad from Nutella in terms of personalizing Nutella for each and every one of you. Right. Do we have the capability and the data to personalize? Right. At best, we do kind of mass marketing. Right. So where does personalization take us in the digital world? So the next thing that I wanted to emphasize is, now, if you want to go to a bank, you want to go to a supermarket, or if you want to go anywhere else, what's your first point of friction? It's finding a car park, right? So once you get a car park, probably you will do everything else. So Amazon Go obviously looks at all of these data points and looks at points of friction, and is trying to see digitally how can I create better ecosystems to take the friction out of it. Gone are the days where Porter's theory of linear value chains and backward integration and forward integration are dead, right? Today we are talking about value ecosystem. Since the next panel has Kapruka and this panel has FreeMe, I was just saying, if I logged in to Kapruka, ordered something, paid through FreeMe, and got it delivered through PickMe, today I can assemble the value ecosystem what I want when I want it. No one determines how the item is getting purchased or delivered to me. I determine that as a user. Today the power of digital is that, right? You could concentrate on your core and then deliver value across.
Once upon a time, business as usual was often good enough. No more. Where we are going, good enough is dead. In a world where everything is connected, where everything is equally excellent, where performance is reaching perfection, there's only one space left to innovate in: you. Right now, you are a central point in the raging tornado of change fueled by digitization, mobilization, augmentation, disintermediation, automation. Well, the list goes on. Science fiction is becoming science fact. Think about self-driving cars or computers that can learn and think. The way we work will never be the same. The skills we need will be dramatically different. Winning or losing are now happening faster than ever before. So what's your response? How will you discover new opportunities in one of the most transformational times in human history? Are you driving change, or are you being driven by it? Disruption has become the new normal. With change, it's always gradually, then suddenly, well, things really have stopped happening gradually. This change is exponential. Everything that used to be dumb and disconnected is now wired and intelligent. Cars, cities, ports, farms, even our bodies will be wired with sensors and will talk to each other. These game changers are also combinatorial. They amplify each other, creating a perfect storm of change. Quantum computing fuels big data. The Internet of Things fuels artificial intelligence and deep learning, which fuels robotics. However, anything that cannot be digitized or automated will become extremely valuable. Human-only traits such as creativity, imagination, intuition, emotion, and ethics will be even more important in the future, because machines are very good at simulating, but not at being. Yes, robots and software will do some of our work, but this will allow us to focus on things that cannot be automated. To imagine change squared, you've got to start engaging with what might be, not just with what is. Immerse yourself in the immediate future, 5 to 7 years out from today. We need to go beyond technology and data to reach human insights and wisdom. Technology represents the how of change, but humans represent the why. The future is about holistic business model. The opportunity is to be liquid, to learn just in time, not just in case, not single improvements, but complete transformations, not individual systems, but new ecosystems. Humanity is where true and lasting value is created. We will engage, relate, and buy things because of the experiences they provide, because of their transformative power. The future doesn't just happen, the future gets happened. The new way to work is to embrace technology, but not to become it. The future is in technology, yet the bigger future lies in transcending it. Let's live and lead from here.
So digital is an imperative today, right? So given that fact, if we want to really adopt digital, the most challenging thing is to simplify things, right? So our journey at John Keells and a couple of the customers that we work in the regional context, including bigger airlines, what we see is you got to reimagine your business in the digital world, right? Where a lot of us are inhibited by rules of engagement on a physical world, on a linear value chain, and we tend to forget the potential digital brings in terms of creating new opportunities for ourselves, right? So I could just allude to a couple of the things that we are doing, even at John, like the latest product that we launched for home, Streisand, which is the first smart home of its kind. Why on earth would we do something like that? Because if you look at the demographics of a home buyer is changing. The demographics of a future dweller is going to be different. He may not even own a car with all these MRTs and stuff coming into play. So you would want convenience at the fingertips, right? You would want automation where it gives them livelihood, a better grip. So to do that, we also need smarter infrastructures. The traditional way we've been managing infrastructures by buying hardware, setting up our own, will not scale out in terms of what the digital world requires, right? So that's the reason you will see cloud, all these cloud offerings bringing traction, because it's an easier way for us to adapt and embrace the digital world and grow, because you can't predict the scale out the digital world will bring in terms of data. So what is the iterative cycle when you get into the digital world that you would do? You will obviously have a discovery phase, right? When you understand a customer comes to your supermarket every 1 week, buys 10 items, you have the opportunity to push a dynamic shopping list to the shopper. You could even predict at what time a car park could be free for him to come and shop freely with less friction. You could pack and deliver stuff to his home if that is his preference. So the options are in abundance. But what would suit you would be dependent on your business case and the profile of your customer. So the ultimate rule in digital is to drive engagement, right? If you have good experience, you'll come back. If you have bad experience, you won't, right? So as much data point as you have to be able to predict the behavior of a user, then you're on a winning streak. And optimize this whole thing on iterative cycle based on yourworld.com. So in the interest of time, I'll probably rush through the rest of the slides because I'm going to overshot my time limit. So these are potentially learnings from John Keels and the other customers we dealt with. So what are critical success factors? So I've divided into kind of 3 compartments, right? Obviously having a digital vision and a leadership is of prime, right? Because you need to have a leadership who buys into digital and understand why it's important. And you got to empower and enable employees. You can't have an organization which doesn't allow people to use internet and Facebook and social media and try to have digital in an organization, right? You got to have inclusive employees who are part of a digital ecosystem, who are using digital on a day-to-day basis. And you got to create this digitality culture. This is something what you'll find in Google, right? You come at any time you want. It's like home. You promote creativity and you give them the breathing space to do what they want. And incubate digital skills like STEMs, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, like the data science thing that they were talking about in the earlier panel, which becomes important to correlate data and get meaningful insights from data that you might have. And build smart infrastructures, which I alluded to earlier, because you need to have your infrastructure which can gear up in terms of digital. Today, for example, FreeMe wanted to integrate to a supermarket. We were able to do that in about a week, right? Because we had an infrastructure which was able to integrate that ASAP. Today, if Keel Super wants to deliver items to their shoppers through PickMe, can I integrate PickMe into my core system, right? That's having smart infrastructures. I should be able to do that in a week or 2. I can't be taking months to say, okay, I'll do that, but it'll take about 6 to 12 months. Then we lost the battle. And obviously data governance and data is of prime. And you've got to promote experimentation. Fear of failure, promoting failure is important for a digital context because a lot of the time we're trying new things and we need breathing space for it. And obviously building ecosystems, better products and stuff. So next thing is in terms of approach. I'm not saying you've got to follow this linearly, but there are 3 pillars that you could crack. Transform experiences, you could transform operations, and you could transform business models. A lot of the time, people associate digital to transform business models like Airbnb and the Ubers of the world. It need not, right? Simply taking friction out of your current systems through technology is also digital, right? So I think a lot of the organizations might look at these similar in a parallel fashion, but you could also look at based on your maturity and your capabilities on a linear fashion as well. So my final slide, this is few things that we've done internally. I just kind of captured in a video. So that concludes my presentation. I'll leave this with a parting thought. I think I probably overrun my time by about 5 minutes, so Jehan might have to take a little bit lesser. Thanks for your patient hearing.
Thank you, Ramesh. Ramesh, as you walk in, we kind of have a fuzzy idea about what John Keel's IT is, right? You showed us some projects, but you showed us some of your products, but you are a supplier to some of the world's leading airlines and airports?
Yep.
You can't name them, but I'm thinking they may be based in the Middle East.
Middle East, yeah.
Yeah, there's like a few big airlines and airports in the Middle East, like these mega hubs, like, you know, the Emirates of the world. You're not saying this, but the Qatars of the world.
Emirates, yeah, but
yeah.
Something close.
Something close, the Qatars of the world, the Etihads of the world. Okay, right. Jehan's from a company we know that started in by sewing clothes, right? You make apparel, ready-made clothes, right? But you're going to tell us that you're doing a lot more than that, right? Okay, up to you, Jehan.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to get everyone down to from the cloud to the ground and talk about from buzz to actually getting it done, right? I'm sure all of us are caught in this whole hype. Everyone thinks that they've done something about this, they're doing it, or they want to do it. But actually, it's easier said than done. So for us at MAS, technology and digital is just a means of achieving our strategic imperatives. So that's the way that we look at it. So if you look at our business, we are predominantly a B2B manufacturing business. And someone would argue saying that, what have we got to do with digital? Because everything that Ramesh mentioned was centric around a consumer. And if you're a B2B business, what have we got to do this? So I think the first piece is actually getting out of the denial. If you feel that your organization has nothing to do with digital and it's not going to get impacted at all. For us, yes, we are a predominant B2B manufacturer, but for these kind of reasons, we just can't ignore the impact that digital is doing in our industry. So if you look at the emergence of micro multinationals, there are these startups accounting to just less than 40% in the apparel landscape. Maybe the 50% is kind of dominated by the big labels and brands, but there is still a portion of startups that are dominating the apparel and fashion space as well. And the funny thing is, they start global. They don't start with, setting up a shop up the street and then being regional and then going global. So we see the emergence of these micro multinationals. Then also we see the popularity of e-com marketplaces. They are pulling all the traffic from the high street into the virtual world. And these obviously have been started by the tech people. And they think that data can revolutionize apparel. So they are going into the extent of saying even we can design what you think you want to wear, right? So there is that lot that we need to deal with as well. And as a result of that, there is an increased frequency of product releases. So I know it might not resonate for us in this part of the world, but in the western parts of the world, there is a kind of a seasonality, and everything like happens for a season. But now, because these players are operating in the virtual world, there is no constraint of space. So all what they want to do is just put a wide variety and a range of products, and they want to make the consumer the jury whether they like the product or not, right? So there is that aspect to it as well. And then again, I think Ramesh touched a bit about experiential retail and omnichannel. And The last piece, which is kind of challenging us, is everyone wants to wear something they think that they are the only person who is wearing. So maybe it's from a fit point of view, or maybe it's kind of from an aesthetic point of view as well. So personalization and customization is also kind of a big piece. And all these things are happening thousands of miles away from where we are. And that's why we can't ignore all what is happening, because it has a clear impact in terms of what we do. So in terms of our game plan, we took time to understand where our vulnerabilities are, as well as where are the opportunities for us to capture more value based on what I just mentioned before. So we looked at it through two lenses. One, maybe we just look through a lens of we're a manufacturer. So therefore, we need to make sure that we drive digital to be a better manufacturer. So we drive digital to our core. Because at the end of the day, all the hype that Ramesh spoke about, someone has to fund it, right? So we need to make sure that digital is driven to the core as well, so that that engine operates well. But while doing that, we also need to make sure that we look through a lens that we are playing in the entire value stream of fashion, and what are the opportunities that technology enables us to play in the entire value stream. So not only just as a manufacturer. So those are the kind of two lenses that we decided to see through. So based on that, the key focus areas that we want to decide was, let's make sure that it's an impactful and a small set of areas that we would want to play. So like I mentioned, in terms of driving it to our core, so we are looking at the opportunities that technology can bring in to drive our productivity high. How do we optimize our resources? How do we reduce the lead time? Because all these would kind of help to weather all the other trends that are happening that I mentioned in the previous slide as well. And obviously quality. Technology can play a big role in terms of making sure that we play to the right quality. Also, when a brand sells online, we see an opportunity that we can service them just beyond manufacturing. Because in theory, if someone is operating online, what do they need to sell? They only need a picture to sell. But in traditional retail, you need at least 5 things of that product hanging on the wall so that one person comes and picks one out. But if people are moving onto an e-commerce landscape, all you need is a picture. But still, I think the apparel manufacturing supply chain is forcing them to take the traditional route because we are not agile enough or we are not fast enough. So we feel that as an opportunity, and we want to make sure that we will enable our customers to sell things online without having their products sitting in their warehouses. So we've come up with a model where we could directly deliver to our consumer. Sorry, it's not our consumer, it's our customer's customer, which is the end consumer. Because traditionally, we would only just deliver to their warehouses. So by doing these kind of stuff, we are hitting most of the challenges that we kind of mentioned before. Most of the brands that we work now in the digital space are willing to share a lot of data. So then the question is, okay, what do we do? But we feel there is a massive opportunity to work with that data, use technology, and capture more value, again, beyond manufacturing. So the key piece that we are always trying to focus on is we are more than a manufacturer, and there is room to capture beyond manufacturing, because all our customers want us is that we will share the data, but can you please be agile? Can you please be fast? And make sure that the product that you're churning out is fresh in terms of styling and on trend. Also, for the last 30 years, we have acquired so much of experiences and knowledge, and we feel digital technology would help us monetize that experience in some form as well. So there is another camp that we are working on, is that set of, that team is focusing on how we actually build digital platforms in order to kind of democratize our knowledge that we built in the last 30 years. The last piece here is about digital has enabled manufacturers like us to go directly to the consumer. So this is with our own product. We have a kind of innovation engine that is running within MAS called Twinery, and that is generating products which are full of function and features. So traditionally, we would have given that to one of our B2B customers to say, here you go, there's a high-performing fabric, or there's a or there's this feature that we can enable in your apparel. You could take it and take it to market. But 10 years ago, we couldn't do that. Well, we could, but if we invest in the high street, in the markets that we are playing, and go and sell them. But today, because of digital technology, we are enabled to actually go to market, and that is our first preferred route in taking our innovation products into market. And that kind of gives us a good test bed as well, because without investing in brick and mortar, you can easily use this channel to test the product to see whether actually it's hitting the sweet spot of what the customers want. So broadly, talking about digital, this is the kind of focus area that we are looking at. Meaning, we want to make sure that our core is strengthened, as well as we want to look at opportunities where we can be beyond a manufacturer. But how do we get it done? Right? Someone has to start somewhere. And it took us a couple of years as well to kind of figure out what we're going to do. The natural tendency is you just start a project. Right? But then we realized starting a project is not going to work. First, we need to understand what are those vulnerabilities that we will have as an organization, and where are the opportunities that we can capture as well. So I think we need to move away from a list of projects and make sure that there is a compelling vision that is there for the organization. Because if you don't have a compelling vision, what can technology do? Right? So that was our starting point. Plus, we also had a good sponsorship from our leadership, and the whole initiative is kind of driven by the leadership as well. The other piece that was important for us is in terms of purpose. If the purpose is that strong, we want to make sure that someone wakes up in the morning thinking about these things as well. And that kind of created the role that I'm playing currently as the Chief Digital Officer. Different to the Chief Information Officer. Now, someone would say, why do you need two people to do this? Right? But I think that's a big unlock there, because someone focuses on creating that value, and one focuses on making sure that your operations are running the way that they need to operate as well. So nothing is inferior or superior. They're both important, but they both need proper mind time. So that's one of the big changes that we've done as well. So talking about talent, when we said that let's create this function to drive this thing through, everyone around the board was saying you need to get some good engineers, right? But then when we looked around, we said, no, it's not going to cut this. You need people with a bit of an entrepreneurial mindset. So you need different skills there. Then you need people who get convinced. So we call them evangelists. So actually we've changed the JDs, the titles, without calling them a business analyst or a systems analyst, we call them evangelists. Because the role of the evangelist, as you would know, is to preach and convert. So the job role of that person is actually make sure that they show the art of the possible of technology and make sure that we make it mainstream, right? So it's important to make sure that the talent that you're bringing in is not just engineering talent. Yes, we need engineering talent as well, but there are different capabilities. So we are also acquiring knowledge in terms of cross-border trade. How do we do cross-border e-commerce? So that is a completely different skill set that you wouldn't find in an engineering background. The next piece is the mindset. Now, yes, you can have a compelling vision, but if you don't make sure that it is kind of proliferated to the rest of the organization and help them understand the role that they play in that, you're going to miss something out. Because yes, you can go around the digital side of things, but end of the day, at least in the business that we are in, something has to get physically sewn. And that is the analog part of our business. And I don't think in the near future that will ever be digital. People might be arguing, saying, yeah, you can have 3D printing. But if you have cracked it, just let us know. Because there's still going to be an analog part of our business, but you need to make sure that for the digital part to work, you need to have this working together. And also the other piece is, it's not only about problem solving, so your mindset should not be, so what is the problem? What are we trying to solve? So yes, that is important, but then also you should look at what's the opportunity that we can unlock as well. Because sometimes technology is not only about problem solving. It should be an opportunity to unlock as well. So the mindset piece is an important piece that we need to put in place more than, in addition to having your team in place that is going to drive this as well. But the other piece I think Ramesh touched about in terms of mindset as well is it's about it's okay to fail. But we kind of complement that with a kind of an experimental ethos. And we also ensure that there's a pot of money to try things. Because if you don't try things, you won't be able to show what kind of value it's going to bring. Because like I said, it's all hyped up. Huh? So if someone is going to come and sell you, I will get AI to give your next sales forecast, would you buy it? The first thing that you would say is, can you just show me that I'm going to get the next month's forecast or next year's forecast right? So that's why the whole experimental ethos is important. Because if not, it's not going to work. And the most important piece here in the experimental ethos is if it doesn't work, just let it go. Don't get emotionally attached to it. So if there are any shareholders sitting in this room, that money might go down the drain. And you should be okay with it. Because if you don't, you will be driving the wrong behavior. So that experimental ethos and how you actually enable that is going to be quite important. The other piece that we've learned is that we just can't do it all by ourselves. You need to make sure that your teams are capable to look around and work in collaboration with the ecosystem of tech partners as well as your supply chain partners and your sales partners as well. Because anything that you do cannot be done in isolation. So that's a kind of an important piece. And when you do that, you could also spot certain opportunities where you would even invest in it as an organization, because you feel that this particular startup in the tech world has cracked something that is really important for our industry. And we've taken the approach of actually investing in them as well, because then we could capture value not only by manufacturing and enabling the manufacturing piece, but also monetizing that kind of technology with the rest of the industry. Why not? And the final piece, in terms of getting it done, is regulation. When you sometimes come up with a business model, the first thing that your team is going to come and tell you is, oh, that cannot be done, because the regulatory framework doesn't allow us to do that. It's fair enough, because in our industry, most of the regulation is around a bulk B2B manufacturing relationship with the external world, and all the regulation is framed around those things. But what we've learned is, if you go to the authorities with a compelling vision, not only for your company, for the industry as well as for the country, I'm sure all those regulations could be aligned to the new way of working, and we've done that as well. So for example, when we wanted to do our B2C shipments, the documentation cost was higher than the courier cost and the product cost. So then we went and said, it's not going to work. So help us. We still keep track of all what's happening, but let's just rework the whole process so that it makes commercial sense for us to do this kind of stuff. But if you stopped saying, no, you can't do that, you will never be able to create that kind of business model. So that piece is also an important piece of what we've kind of done. So before we go into the panel discussion, just to conclude, don't get caught up too much in the hype. So if there are lawyers and accountants around, I think your jobs are still safe because AI is not going to take over your job yet, right? Maybe after you retire, the next generation, there might be an issue there. So don't get too much caught up in the hype because there is still tech that is mainstream that you can start using. Because we always jump onto that next best thing, forgetting there is so much of technology that you are not even using, right? So people are asking me, what are you doing with blockchain? Isn't that the big thing to do? And I said, I'm not doing anything with blockchain because there are so many other things that I need to deal with, right? When blockchain is mainstream, maybe I look at it, right? So that is a big piece. There's mainstream technology you can use right now, so don't just jump into something that is hyped up too much. The compelling purpose is key. Don't start with the technology. We tried doing that and then we kind of pivoted back to going back to the main purpose of what it is. And don't delegate it. I think you should drive it. So we have all leaders within this, in this room as well, so make sure that you drive that. Because if you don't support to kickstart that journey, it's not going to happen. So you just can't delegate it. So that's why, from MS Holdings' point of view, our chairman is running this initiative. And that kind of gives the right message in terms of the importance of what it is. And don't forget to create an environment where you have that experimental ethos. I think that's a big piece as well. Because if you don't create, and if you don't create the funding around it as well, you will never try things. And if you never try things, you're never going to get the budget approved in terms of doing that. And my final words would be, you wouldn't know what you don't know until you actually try it. Thank you.